Tonight we're learning more about the extremely rare cougar kittens recently captured on video in northern Minnesota. The kittens are the first verifiable evidence of cougar reproduction in Minnesota in more than 100 years. Northern News Now's Sophia Lauber spoke with scientists to learn more about the significance of the footage.
When researchers set up a trail camera over a deer carcass south of Voyageurs National Park, the possibility of capturing the first ever video of wild cougar kittens in Minnesota never even crossed their minds.
It was just surreal. There's really no better word to describe it.
Voyageurs Wolf Project researcher Tom Gable collected the camera and rushed home to view the footage.
And that's when it just seemed really crazy. There's 4 cougars in one frame, and the events that had to happen for them to kill one of the deer that we're studying for all the events to kind of transpire was just kind of crazy.
DNR wildlife researcher John Erb says cougars spotted in Minnesota in recent years likely wandered in from out of state.
In general, it's because as the population grew in the Dakotas and then in Nebraska, there's only so much habitat, so many animals that can be supported there.
But the kittens mean Minnesota could soon have its own in-state cougars.
You may have a female that sets up a territory adjacent to where it was born, and now there's more potential. So I think the odds are higher that we could see, things pick up in many areas.
A self-sustaining population would mean more sightings, which Erb says is not a cause for concern.
Cougars probably want to avoid humans as much as we want them to.
And for scientists, it means a lot of research to look forward to.
But that sort of mystery is what also makes it very exciting.
Again, that was Sophia Lauber reporting. Now, Erb says it's certainly possible other cougars have reproduced in the state in recent years. But again, this is the first verifiable sighting. With rare species like cougars, the DNR relies on verifiable data like pictures of the actual animals or animal